Hello and welcome to the first lecture on Chapter 10, Motivation and Emotion. We're just going to look at emotion this term. So in this section, we're going to look at primary and secondary emotions. We're going to look at different parts of the brain and their role in our emotional experience. We're going to compare and contrast the James Lange, the Cannon-Baird, and the Schachter-Singer two-factor theories of emotion, and we'll look at misattribution of arousal and excitation transfer. The terms emotion, feeling, and mood are often used interchangeably in everyday language, but psychologists have very different uses for each word. We have very specific meanings when we talk about the terms emotion, feeling, and mood. An emotion is defined as an immediate, specific, negative or positive response to environmental events or internal thoughts. So an emotion happens in the moment, and it is immediate. It's not really something you can control. Emotions happen, they come to us, and they are a reaction to something we see, hear, to something we think. A mood, on the other hand, is a diffuse, long-lasting emotional state, and it does not have an identifiable object or trigger. These are different things. So, for psychologists, an emotion is often called an affect. So usually, instead of saying emotional states, psychologists call these affective states. So there's three components to affective states. One is the physiological process. So each emotional state has its own physiological patterns. It can change your heart rate, your respirations. It can change the dilation of your pupils. You might sweat with some feelings and not with others, or with emotions. There's a behavioral response, and usually these behavioral responses are physiological in nature, and so this is linked to that physiological process. The behavioral response is the physiological process. And then there's the cognitive appraisal of that process. So your emotion is what you cognitively appraise it to be, based on your evaluation of your physiological states. So basically, we are in a constant state of monitoring our bodies for change. And when it comes to assessing emotion, we assess that based on our bodily states of being, the physiological changes we go through moment from moment. And we appraise those and give those sensations a label as a feeling. Now, a mood is different. So as I defined it, it's a diffuse, long-lasting emotional state that does not have an identifiable object or trigger. Moods are longer lasting. Emotions are reactions. Moods are more of just a state of being. So a mood tends to be much longer lasting. It doesn't interfere with what's happening because a mood tends to be pervasive. Our mood definitely influences our thoughts and our behaviors. So it can definitely influence how we cognitively appraise our physiological state to determine what emotions we're feeling. But mood and emotions are different. Emotions are in the moment. They're instantaneous. Moods are longer lasting. This brings us to primary and secondary emotions. Primary emotions are emotions that are innate. These are at birth. They're evolutionarily adaptive. And anything that's adaptive helps us survive or reproduce. And primary emotions are universal. They're shared cross-culturally. So the 7 primary emotions that researchers have discovered to be universal is anger, fear, sadness, disgust, happiness, surprise, and contempt. So those are your 7 primary emotions. Then we have secondary emotions, and there's a lot of secondary emotions. These are blends of primary emotions, feelings about emotions, or emotions as they relate to culturally specific values or concepts. So some of these could be remorse, shame, guilt, pride, love, contentment, jealousy. Now, all humans experience love. That is cross-cultural. But love is not a primary emotion because love is shaped by culture. Who we love, why we love them, how we love them, that's all shaped by culture. So, love is a secondary emotion, even though all humans experience it, assuming that they are mentally healthy individuals. So, when it comes to looking at primary and secondary emotions, the 7 primary emotions, they are the primary 7 emotions. The research is very solid on those. If you're ever curious why an emotion isn't a primary emotion, ask yourself, is it cultural? Secondary emotions are culturally specific. They're all related to the human condition, but how those emotions manifest themselves or are experienced are cultural. So secondary emotions are cultural, primary emotions are innate. They are cross-cultural. Now there's what's called the circumplex model, is another way of classifying emotions. So we've got the circumplex of emotions right here, and I'm going to come right back to this. So with the circumplex model, emotions are plotted along 2 continuums. One is valence, which is how negative or positive an emotion is, and arousal, how arousing an emotion is. So basically, how intense is the emotion? So how much does the body change in response to the experience of that emotion? So heart rate, sweating, muscle tension, breathing rate, blood pressure. Each emotion comes with physiological changes. So we have the actual circumplex of emotions right here. Emotions in this area have low arousal. It means you don't feel a lot of arousal in your body. Emotions up here cause a lot of physiological arousal. Those emotions in the blue and purple are more negatively experienced emotions, and those emotions in the orange and green are more positive emotions. Now, emotions can involve activation of the autonomic nervous system, and this is to prepare the body to meet environmental challenges. The autonomic nervous system is the nervous system that just does things. So I always think of it as the automatic nervous system. That just works for me. It's the nervous system that regulates your blood pressure and your heart rate, your respiration. It's the part of the body that keeps you at homeostasis. It tries to keep your body at its optimal level of arousal and optimal level of functioning. And so whenever if you experience surprise, your heart rate's going to go up. You're going to start breathing faster. You might start to sweat a little bit. That's the autonomic nervous system preparing your body to meet that surprise. So when researchers have asked people from various cultures to use a computer program to color in which areas of the body were involved in feeling various emotions, they found this. And this seemed to be cross-cultural. So the emotions that tended to be caused us to feel more sluggish or kind of just either calmer or constrained are more blue, are darker in color. Emotions that tend to feel strongly were colored in very brightly using oranges and reds. And they found that cross-culturally, this is how people described emotions. I find depression so interesting. Other than neutral, it is the only emotional state at which there is no excitement. It's just all blue and black. It's like a slab of concrete, and if you've ever been really depressed, that's what it feels like. So, to come to this graphic, researchers simply asked people from various cultures to use a computer program to color which areas of the body were involved in feeling various emotions. So take a look at that and ask yourself, does that match what you would draw yourself? And we will leave off this lecture right here. I will see you on lecture 10.2. Thank you.